everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. We're working away on our 1948 8N Ford back here, and I'm getting at the point where I'm going to start hanging some lights and stuff on it. So, you know what? I thought this would probably be a great opportunity to make a special video just all about Ford N-Series lights. From 1939, when they debuted, until the last one in 1952, the N-Series had a variety of different lights and, lighting kits that you could get for them. So I'm going to try and go through it and make a little bit of sense of it. So if you're working on one of these things, you can kind of have an idea of what it should have for lights, if depending on how correct you want to make it. We'll start our tour with aftermarket solutions to lighting on an N-Series or even a Ferguson tractor of the era. There were factory lighting kits available, and we're going to get into those shortly. But like anything else, the aftermarket found an opportunity to sell stuff, and they did. There were all kinds of aftermarket light kits for these things that you could buy at an auto parts store or Canadian Tire or probably even Sears Roebuck, They would usually come with a pair of arms like this. This is a cast iron one, and this is a pressed steel one. Now, what's interesting about this, you'll see that it's actually made, it actually bolts to the knockouts on the hood side. And then you'd have to drill one more hole to pass your wires through, or just run them around. And these will come with just a kind of generic pair of usually metal-bodied headlights. These ones, I could tell by looking at them, had a separate lens and reflector with a replaceable bulb in it. So that all would have been held to the inside of the trim ring with little clips. And that is your aftermarket lighting system. Now, before we talk about lights, we need a switch. You got to be able to turn them on and off. So this is a replacement N-Series headlight switch. There's different places over the years to put them. On the first generation 8Ns, that'd be 48, 49, and the first half of 50 before the side distributor engine and the proof meter. There's just this little bracket that goes on the same two bolts that hold the bottom of the voltage regulator plate, and the headlight switch goes in there, and then it's powered by a little lead that goes over there to the ballast resistor. Well, the terminal, or the common terminal on the ballast resistor unit. If you're working on a side distributor 8N that has the bulge for the proof meter over here, there's nowhere to put that little bracket for the headlight switch. So on those, the most common place for the headlight switch is over here underneath the ammeter. You have to be careful you don't get it mixed up with any of this stuff, this bracket. So you can see right about there at the that position there. So on this side, it would be about there, the headlight switch. You could also maybe put it down there too. It's kind of, there's not really any fast and hard rule as to where it goes on a side distributor 8N. Let's go over to the barn and I'll show you where it goes on a 2N. If you're working on a 2N with a tin dash like this one, right there is the correct position for the headlight switch. That hole is punched from the factory, and it comes with a little plug in it. You knock out the plug and put your headlight switch in. Here, as I explained to you a minute ago, is where the headlight switch goes on a side distributor 8N. And even here, this is a 1940 aluminum dash 9N. You can see it still has that little plug there in the dash where the headlight switch goes. Pretty much in the same position as on the tin dash 2N. Now we're going to start with headlights, now that we've got the switches all sorted out. These here are the original 9N and early 2N headlights. These were made by the CM Hall Company, And you could see, if you could see on the lens there, it's really there. Tractor light. There's CM Hall tractor lights. These are really hard to find. They rotted out. The lenses got broken. A lot of times over the years, guys had switched the tractors up to 12 volt, and they would just literally throw these things in the garbage and put some, you know, some crap like this on it. Well, it happened. You got to see where you're going, right? This one here, you could see it's had one of the lenses replaced. So these ones are old school. It's got a separate reflector, a separate lens, a separate bulb, and it's all held into the back of this ring with clips. These two are really nice. These are going to go on my 1940 9N. And wow, it hurt when I bought them, let me tell you. The other thing, the Ford tractor headlights mount on what we call a wing emblem. So this, there's two styles of these. This one here is a zinc one, a later one, and this is an early cast iron one. So you can see that fits on the hood side like that, and then the light goes through it. Just adds a little Art Deco touch, you know. And then this piece would be on the back side, and it would all bolt together like that. Like I said, the early ones, the CM Hall headlights, should be on these cast iron wings, but like this one, they all broke. So if you're restoring a tractor, you'll be hard pressed to find a pair of these, but the zinc ones at least are still available as a reproduction. And once you put a coat of paint on them, it's kind of hard to tell, really. The other thing with the CM Hall headlights, on the earliest 9Ns, like 1939s and early 1940s, the generator did not actually have enough output to run the lights. So you also had to upgrade to they call it the B generator, and I guess later the C generator. They just kept getting more and more output on the generator to make sure it could run the lights and charge the battery. Oh, and run the ignition too. That's kind of important, eh? So I guess that's it for the CM Halls. These things are quite large compared to a normal tractor headlight. I'll show you that after for comparison. Somewhere around 1943, they switched to what we call the Tractolight headlight. You can see here it says, it's stamped right in it, Tractolight. Now these ones here are reproductions, and they're bad reproductions. They're, you know, like the stamping on that one, it's double stamped. But anyway, they are what they are. If you need headlights, you need headlights. Now, bearing in mind that the ones used on two ends, so that would be from 1943 until the end of 1947, they looked exactly like these. They're the exact same light, but they are not stamped Tractolight. If you see one that's stamped Tractolight, that's from 1948 and up, and it's off an 8N. But like I said, they're completely interchangeable, and aside from that stamping, they're exactly the same. You can see here how they changed the inside of the light to accept a seal beam rather than the old three-piece ones like the CM Halls. And you can see here the difference in size. Not tremendous, but noticeable. These ones here have car headlights in them. They should have these utility or tractor headlights. These ones would have been mounted to the tractor with the zinc wing emblem, and this on the back. That would be correct from 1948 until 49-ish, 50-ish. You have to remember the lights didn't come on the tractor. They were an accessory kit. So if a dealer had a lot of light kits in stock, the newer stuff might not filter through till a little bit later. But 49-ish, 50-ish is when they changed these. And the lights started to be mounted on this. Now you can see that one has got the two sides of it folded down because it's for a work light. But the one for the headlight was the same, but it was flat. So if you could imagine it looking like that, but that size. So on those ones, the light got mounted like that, and only that much of that plate was used. So you got a square plate, and there were also round ones too. I'm not sure. I think the square ones were first, and then by the end of 1952, it was just a big round washer on the inside of the hood side. And of course, this stuff was all 6-volt in the 50s. Even the seal beams were 6-volt seal beams. Now we should talk about taillights. So for the majority of the actual model years of N-Series production, they came with this taillight, which is a Taurus taillight, because it's stamped Taurus on it. And on the top of them, some of them, not all of them, say, you can see there, it says Stimsonite. I guess that's the company that made the lens. Now, some of them say Stimsonite and Taurus. Some of them, like this one, just say Taurus. And I've got one around here, this one, that only says Stimsonite. But these are all Taurus taillights. So these Taurus taillights were used from 1939. They were used on 9 ends. They were used on 2 ends. And they were used on the first year and a half or maybe 2 years, like I said, because of the lag of the light kits, depending on how many a dealer would have had in stock. The first couple of years of 8 ends. Our 8 end there is a very early 1948, so 100% it used a Taurus taillight. And lucky I found this one. This is an actual 8N one. I could tell by the color of the original paint that was on it. And you can see it only says Stimsonite. It doesn't say Taurus. So I would guess that the ones that say Stimsonite and Taurus, or the ones that say Taurus, are from 9 ends and 2 ends. This one just says Stimsonite, and I'm, without having a time machine, pretty certain that that is an original 8N, from an original 8N light kit. So somewhere around about 1949 or into 1950, they changed to the duo lamp tail lamp. So you can see, if we put a Taurus tail lamp beside it, you can see the shape of the housing is a little bit different. The lens is a little bit different. And what else you'll notice, the Taurus taillight has a much wider bolt pattern than the duo lamp taillight. So what you end up with is there's two different brackets. So this is the bracket for a Taurus taillight, and that's the bracket for a duo lamp. I'll put them with, there we go. And likewise for the license plate bracket, if you choose to put one on, because of the difference in bolt pattern, this is a Taurus taillight bracket. I think it's even stamped. Yeah, it's stamped Taurus. And the Stimsonite, or the dual lamp taillight bracket is very similar, but the bolt pattern is a little narrower on it. This here is the bracket that bolts to the fender. And that's where you put the hole in the top of it there is where you put your taillight, and those 2 holes on the side are for mounting the plow light. We'll talk about plow lights next. You can also buy a matching one, a mirror image one, that goes on that side if you need it for whatever purpose. We'll talk about that later. Now let's talk about work lights, or plow lamps, if you'd like to call them that. Now, from 1939 until 1949, there was no work light or plow light per se included in the tractor lighting kit. What was recommended in the instructions of the lighting kit was, if you wanted a plow light, you would install the left headlight on the side of the hood, and you would remove the right tail light and move it to the rear. So this would be your upright bracket on your fender, and your tail light would be sitting on top of it like so. And then what you would do is you would take your right headlight with the wing, and notice the holes in there, that fits perfectly like that. And you would install your right headlight on the back. Now, if it was a CM Hall headlight you had back there, you'd have a pretty big darn light in the back of the tractor. So, people would do different things. I don't think a lot of farmers would go for that. So they'd get a light from somewhere else and put it on there. And again, there were aftermarket solutions available. You could buy a light. This here is some kind of a little aftermarket light, which is incidentally very similar to the Ford original plow light, and it can go on there. Later, when the plow lights started coming in the kits, they came with this bracket to mount it. So you didn't use your headlight wing anymore. You got that, and it fits there or it fits on the top, depending on how you wanted to mount your light. So we'll go up to the barn in a minute, and I'll show you an original factory rear plow light. I've got one on my side distributor 8N. But if you're working on a 39 to 48 or 49-ish N-series tractor, there is no correct plow light. So you can pretty much let your mind wander and do what you need to do. This one here is an interesting one that I found. It was on a 9N that I bought. The same 9N that I got that nice Taurus taillight from that we're going to use on this. And it had obviously come off a 48 or 49 8N. But you could see here that inside it, the original paint is 8N gray. I cleaned the outside of it and gave it a coat of paint. But the inside, you could see it's originally got the 8N gray on it. And you can see where that's a 3-piece light with a separate bulb held in with the clips. This is quite a nice piece, but it is, you know, headlight size. I may put this probably on my 1949N when I do it up. Here's another alternative. This one I pulled off a Massey Ferguson 35 industrial in a wrecking yard. And you can see how this one goes on. You remove that bolt there, or the one on the front, and that just clamps on like that. And if you were to use locking nuts on there, you could leave them just tight enough that you could swivel this thing and move it all around. I guess if you wanted to, you could knock out that rivet and replace it with a bolt and put it right on the top of the fender. I'll use this for something one day, but right now I'm not planning on using it. Next thing we're going to talk about is flashers. When these tractors were first built, of course, there was no requirement for these. But now, if you want to go on the road with an old tractor, it really needs to have flashers on it. And they need to face forward and back, be amber in color, and flash. So we've got a few options here. Number one is the old lollipop light. So how I like to rig these up is, I'll show you on one of the tractors up in the barn after, but I get a pair of these brackets. So on one of them, I put the tail light on sideways like that, and on the other bracket, I put the work lamp on sideways like that, and then I put the flashing lights up on top like that, and it does get them just high enough up that you could see it kind of over top of the fender. And when I'm doing that, I put a little bracket like this on there. I put the flasher through it, and I put a little red reflector on the back of it. So, because probably technically we're supposed to have reflectors on them too. Now, if you're going to do this, these are some cheap ones I got locally. The problem with these is that they have a plastic housing, and anything that catches them, it just breaks them right off, and you're constantly changing them. These ones, if you look around at swap meets and stuff, you can find these old school signal stats. These are copies, but they're copies of the old school signal stat lollipop lights. These have a cast metal base. They're really tough. They sell these at Steiner Tractor. That's where I got them. And you don't have to worry about these breaking if a branch hits it. You can find them at swap meets. A lot of times, though, they'll be off trucks. So they'll have a red lens on one side and an amber lens. I guess you could probably get away with that, you know, face the red one to the back. Then there is factory stuff. This is off. These ones came off a late 70s or 80s Ford tractor that had a cab put on it. These originally would have been sitting on top of the fenders. And you can see here, this is the left one. It's got the tail light built right into it. And then there's the switch. The flasher, not sure where the flasher is. I think the flasher is in the dash. And that makes these things flash. So it's kind of a self-contained unit. And then these ones I like even better. These are off probably early 70s Ford tractor. And I may put these on on this one. They go, no, not like that. They're kind of, yeah, they're left and right. Yeah, that's the right one for this side. And it sits on the fender like so, with a couple of bolts. So I haven't decided if I'm going to put flashers on this one or not yet, because I don't really know if I'm going to drive it on the road. We'll have to see. When I get putting it together, I'll make that decision. Last but not least, we're going to need a slow-moving vehicle sign on the back of this thing, right? So here's how I do it. I'll see some people mount them on the fender back here. It doesn't really matter, so long as it can be seen by motorists behind you. That's the main thing. You don't want to get run over by a car when you're out enjoying your 8N. So how I normally do it, it keeps it out of the way, and I could just pop it off when I don't need it. I just bend up a piece of flat stock, I put it underneath the seat bracket, and I put that on there like that. So if I'm at a show, I could just pop the thing off. And this is relatively unobtrusive, you don't notice it. But if you want to go drive it on the road, you just grab your slow-moving vehicle sign and drop it in there, and off you go. That's kind of an ugly one, but you get the message. Other things you can do to these, depending on what you're going to use them for, is you can put on a horn. I like having a horn on it because when you're outside working away, if there's, a few people working and you need to get somebody's attention, instead of screaming over a running engine, you just give a horn a couple of toots and you can get someone's attention. So I'll put a horn on them sometimes. You can also, when you're doing your wiring in this area, for your tail light and that, you can add a trailer harness. So if you're going to be pulling a trailer, even a hay wagon is supposed to have a flashing light on the back of it. So you need some way of hooking that up. I've even got one with electric brakes on it. Why not? Anyway, let's go up to the barn and I'll show you some of that stuff before we sign off. So here we are up in the barn with Trusty Rusty. So he's pretty much rigged up. It's got you can see it's got a dual lamp, tail lamp. It's got an old school set of signal stat flashers. It's got a 7-pole trailer plug because this one's got electric trailer brakes. It's nothing too fancy. It's just literally a spike. They're on or off. But if you're moving a big tractor around on a big trailer around on the property, at least you could throw the trailer brakes on instantly. There was already a hole there from something else, so I said, well, rather than trying to fill the hole, I'll just put that in. Now, I don't really like having 10,000 switches all over the dash, so I try to find ways to use switches for multiple purposes. So what we did, for instance, for running the horn, rather than using the N-series ignition switch, which is a simple on-off, I used one from a car that has a start feature, right? And I hooked up the horn to the start. So we have a working horn without having an extra switch. Same thing with the lights. Instead of using a proper N-series headlight switch, I just got a universal headlight switch. So it's 2 positions, right? Park and headlight. So how I've got it wired up is on the first pull, which is park. You can see here, you get your headlights and your tail light. And if you pull it the second position, all them stay on, but the flashers come on. So now we've got flashers without having to have an extra switch. And then on the back of this one, here's our original work light. It's all rusted, it's full of holes and stuff, but I don't care. It's an original factory one in it, and it still works. Also on this, it'll be hard to tell now, but all the instruments on this one are illuminated. When you buy replacement gauges for these N-Series tractors, if you look around, some of them actually have holes in the back for light sockets, and you can illuminate them. So all the gauges, even the proof meter on this one, illuminate. Turn the battery off before I leave this thing here. This is our Ferguson. It has basically the exact same lighting system that's on that 8N. The only exception being the Ferguson, this is a TEA. It was built in England, sold in Canada. The original light kit for it, I'm not even sure what these things would have. I've seen so many different lighting setups on these old Fergusons, but what I ended up going with, I went with the wings. If you get a factory light kit, they seem to have the wings, and they seem to mostly come with these non-stamped Taillight headlights. But what I did, I happened to come across a pair of nice Massey Ferguson teardrop headlights, we call them. These are a little bit newer than this tractor, but they're okay. They work just fine. At least they're from the Ferguson family. While I'm up here, I'll point out this is a 1947 2N, and you can see, like I showed you down there, it's got the Taillight headlights, but without the Taillight script on the side of them. So that is the correct headlights for a 2N, and this one's got a car bulb in it too. Of course, nowadays too, if you're not worried about a period or a retro look, or restoration type stuff, there are so many great lighting options available with the LED stuff that you can get nowadays. Light bars, spotlights, floodlights. It's unbelievable. The stuff is getting cheaper, and it uses hardly any current at all. It's great stuff. And both of my Kubotas that I do a lot of work with them, totally, completely LED, front to back, top to bottom on those. And you can't beat it. This stuff is great. But anyway, that's it, I guess, for the explanation and a little bit of a history lesson on lights and lighting systems on N-Series Ford tractors and, Fergusons. You know what? Something I never mentioned when I was talking about taillights. If you find a Taurus taillight, but it's got a chrome bezel, it's from a Ferguson. Ford's always had painted bezels, and the Fergusons use the chrome ones. There, you can win a prize at trivia night. Anyway, I guess that'll do it for that. Instead of talking about lights, I'm going to get some lights together and get them on this bloody tractor. It's been sitting there like that for too long. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Hope you learned something. I had fun explaining all this stuff to you. And until we meet again, this is Kevin checking out from the Claremont Classic Garage. Thanks and so long.